My vision tunneled to a pinpoint as the message from my father filled my screen. An unexpected metallic taste flooded my mouth as I read the words, "We've chosen to sever all contact. Stay away from us forever." The half-eaten sandwich on my desk turned to ash in my mouth. The office around me continued its normal rhythm, keyboards clicking, phones ringing, while my world imploded in digital blue light. Then came the notification. Laura had liked the message. A bright, cheerful thumbs up on my exile. My sister, endorsing my banishment with the same casual click she'd use for a vacation photo. The fluorescent lights suddenly seemed to pulse overhead, too bright and somehow too dim simultaneously. The ordinary Tuesday lunch hour transformed into something surreal as I stared at my phone, my fingertips gone numb against the screen. Without overthinking, I typed back a single line, "I'll remove my name from every loan tomorrow." Send. My name is Olivia, I'm 29 and a financial analyst. This is the story of how I reclaimed my future from the family who tried to erase me. The irony wasn't lost on me. My family had just discarded me via text message, but they expected my financial support to continue uninterrupted. For years, I'd been their safety net, the responsible daughter whose signature guaranteed their loans, whose credit score secured their mortgages, whose paycheck covered their emergencies. I woke before dawn the next morning. The city outside my window was still dark, streetlights casting long shadows across empty sidewalks. I arranged my weapons across the kitchen table: laptop, legal pad, calculator, coffee. The silence felt different now, expectant rather than lonely. My manager had praised my analytical skills last week during my performance review. "You can find patterns others miss," she'd said. Now I turned that same focus toward dismantling the financial web that bound me to my family. The mortgage was first. My father had convinced me 3 years ago that adding my name as cosigner was just a formality to secure a better interest rate. 2 refinances later, my credit score had become the only thing keeping them in that house. "You can't just erase your name," the bank representative warned when I called. "Then what triggers its removal?" I asked. Her hesitation told me everything. Refinancing or selling. Those are the only options. I took notes in neat, precise rows. Dad couldn't qualify for refinancing. I'd seen his credit report last Christmas when he'd asked for a small loan to cover Madison's community college tuition. If I removed my guarantee, the house would need to be sold. The truck lease came next. My father had insisted he needed the heavy-duty Model 4 business opportunities that never materialized. The finance manager was blunt: no guarantor, no truck. Simple math. By noon, my legal pad was filled with numbers in tight, controlled handwriting. Mortgage, $247,000. Truck lease, $36,540 remaining. Laura's car loan, $19,875. Mom's kitchen renovation, $20,000. I paused, coffee gone cold in my mug. Every debt I'd shouldered like a birthright. Every signature I'd provided because family supports family. Every payment I'd made because that's what daughters do. They'd never seen it as exploitation. In their narrative, this was my obligation, my duty to the people who'd raised me. When I'd started setting boundaries last year, declining to co-sign Laura's student loan refinance, questioning the emergency withdrawals from our joint account, the accusations began. Selfish. Ungrateful. Cold. I'd been fighting for air while they insisted I keep drowning. Laura's car was legally mine, title, registration, insurance all in my name. She just drove it like she'd earned it. The following morning, I took a personal day from work. I waited until Laura's shift at the mall had started, until my parents would both be at their respective jobs. The spring morning was cool as I parked down the street from my childhood home. I checked Laura's employee schedule online, a public calendar the mall maintained for each store, to ensure she'd be at work until evening. The neighborhood looked smaller somehow. The oak trees I remembered as towering giants now seemed merely tall. The white sedan gleamed in the driveway, washed recently for once. My key slid into the door. Inside, the car smelled like stale fast food and the sickly sweet perfume Laura had worn since high school. Glitter sparkled in the floor mats, evidence of the costume jewelry she sold at kiosks but never seemed to profit from. The engine started smoothly. As I reversed out of the driveway, a strange sensation washed over me, like I was stealing something. But the title in my glove compartment confirmed the truth. I was reclaiming what was already mine. At my apartment, I parked the car in my assigned spot and sent one message to the family group chat: vehicle recovered. Laura can arrange other transportation. Then I silenced the thread and went for a 5-mile run. By the time I returned, my phone had exploded. Missed calls 27. Voicemails 13. Text messages 146. Email notifications from relatives I hadn't spoken to in years. The digital equivalent of a family mob outraged not by the exile they'd imposed but by the consequences I'd enacted. Mom's tearful voicemail accused me of cruelty. Dad's text threatened legal action. Laura's message was a masterpiece of revisionist history, claiming I'd always been jealous of her. Uncle Robert sent scripture about forgiveness. Aunt Nancy diagnosed me with various personality disorders she'd learned about on medical dramas. I set my phone on the counter and opened my evidence folder. Inside, copies of titles, loan agreements, bank statements, screenshots of payment confirmations, every document meticulously organized and dated. My hands trembled slightly, but not from fear. From relief. I'd spent years keeping their financial house of cards from collapsing. Now I was simply stepping away from the table. The next morning brought a new wave of family outrage. Laura had gone public with her version of events, a social media post titled My Truth that portrayed me as controlling, vindictive, and unstable. Friends I hadn't seen since high school sent me screenshots, asking if I was okay. A former coworker commented on Laura's post, "Didn't Olivia pay for that car?" The comment vanished within minutes. So did his access to Laura's profile. My phone vibrated continuously with new messages. Cousins I barely knew sending articles about narcissism. Second-degree connections offering to hear both sides. My mother's friends suggesting therapy, for me of course, never for them. I turned off notification sounds and opened my evidence folder again. This time, I photographed every document, saved copies to 2 separate drives, and emailed myself a compressed archive. If this escalated further, I wouldn't be caught unprepared. Dad's contribution arrived at noon, a photograph of letterhead from a law firm I'd never heard of. "Expect consequences," he wrote. I forwarded it to Gabrielle, a lawyer friend from college. "Pure bluff," she replied 6 minutes later. "Keep your documentation immaculate." A strange calm settled over me as I made afternoon tea. The kitchen counter gleamed in the slanting light. Outside, sparrows argued over the feeder I'd installed last weekend. Life continued, ordinary and indifferent to family drama. Grandma Helen called as I was washing my mug. "I've spoken with your mother," she began, her voice steady and measured. "Now I want to hear your side." The tears I'd been holding back for days finally spilled over. I told her everything, the loans, the lies, the message that had exiled me. She listened without interrupting. "When your mother was young," she finally said, "she borrowed $5,000 from us for a car. Never paid it back. Said she thought it was a gift." A pause. "Some people think love means endless rescue. You're right to stop drowning for them." Her voice wavered once, then steadied. "You remind me of your grandfather. He believed in earning peace." When the call ended, I sat in the growing darkness, the car keys cool in my palm. Freedom didn't feel triumphant. It felt clean, like air after rain. The next week brought escalation. Laura's social media campaign gained traction among mutual acquaintances who'd only ever heard her version of events. Mom left voicemails that blended guilt with scripture. Dad's threats grew more specific but no more substantial. I scheduled a therapy intake appointment. Thursday, 4 p.m., recurring weekly. A courier delivered a letter demanding the immediate return of Laura's vehicle. The threats were in bold. The signatures were missing. I responded by email, attaching scans of the title and insurance documents in my name. "Your move," I wrote. Gabrielle texted a thumbs up. "Start a written log," she advised. "Every contact, every threat, every expense." I created a new document and typed the date and time. The list grew quickly, a chronology of consequence. The family group chat burned with recrimination. Uncle Robert proposed mediation. Aunt Nancy organized a prayer chain. Cousin Kevin sent links to sermons about forgiveness. I muted his number permanently. That night, I stood by my window watching the city lights. Somewhere a siren wailed and faded. My life felt smaller and cleaner. Not empty, measured. I set my phone face down on the nightstand. I turned off every notification. Silence arrived like a welcome guest. I slept without dreaming of drowning. The house hit the market in June. I didn't visit once. Real estate agents staged fruit bowls and white towels in the spaces where my childhood had happened. I signed the selling documents digitally and moved on. Dad applied for refinancing twice. He was denied both times. The lender emailed the next steps, sale required, timeline attached. I forwarded it to Gabrielle without comment. An offer arrived after 6 showings. Good school district. Clean inspection. Closing in 30 days. At the signing, I kept my camera off. The wire confirmation landed that afternoon. After the mortgage and fees, equity remained. My portion, $20,000. I saved the receipt. Dad texted one line, "You're a vulture." I archived it for my records. The threatened legal action never materialized. My documentation was ironclad, and as Gabrielle later explained, they had no legitimate case against me. The truck lease resolved itself when the dealership demanded a new guarantor or return. Dad found a coworker willing to co-sign. I mailed my release letter anyway. File updated. Liability removed. Laura's car stayed in my spot. I changed the insurance and plates. Maintenance on schedule. Finally. No glitter on the mats. Mom's kitchen loan kept humming in my head. $20,000 borrowed in my name. 3 payments from her, then silence. I'd stopped paying last winter. My credit score had dipped 60 points. I accepted the temporary damage. Collections called 6 months later. The balance had swollen with fees to $23,000. I negotiated a settlement, $5,000 single payment. Deletion in writing. They agreed. The mathematics of my freedom, $9,000 already paid. $5,000 to settle. $14,000 on $20,000. A wound closed with a scar. Work noticed the difference. I stayed late for deliverables, not disasters. I mentored new hires instead of managing family crises. My manager scheduled a one-on-one. "You've stepped up," she said. "Clients ask for you by name." Promotion in 3 months. Senior title, 15% raise. I redirected the difference to savings. Laura's social media presence grew louder rather than sadder. Rants about toxic people alternated with screenshots of devotionals between sponsored content for the multi-level marketing scheme she joined. The same former coworker commented again, "Didn't your sister pay for everything?" The comment vanished. The account was blocked. I didn't chase narratives online. I kept mine documented with precision. Dates, amounts, outcomes, next steps. Grandma Helen visited in August. Small suitcase, firm hug, clear eyes. "She brought a card and a check for your buffer," she said. "Not your burden." We ate lunch by the window, talking about my work and the condo search I'd begun. I answered without flinching. On her way out, she paused. "Proud of you," she said. "Not for fighting, for stopping the rescue." That night, I opened the bankruptcy records for our county. Gabrielle had mentioned public filings might show the aftermath of my financial separation, so I decided to check. Public filings listed names I recognized but wasn't surprised by. They had chosen consequences over change. I closed the tab and breathed slowly. I wasn't their insurer anymore or their understudy in adulthood. I washed the dishes and wiped the counter. The apartment stayed tidy and quiet. Bills paid, calendar manageable, inbox under control. Freedom looked like Tuesday. I toured condos with a steady heartbeat. No one else on the paperwork. A 1-bedroom faced a green park, morning light streaming through tall windows. The lender approved my application quickly. Clean history, clean income-to-debt ratio, clean boundaries. On closing day, I signed a loan with only my name on every page. Keys landed in my palm, not heavy, final. I moved with help from friends I hadn't had time for during my years as family financial support. We assembled furniture and shared pizza, laughing about the mysteries of adulthood. Grandma Helen visited the following weekend. "I've updated my will," she said over tea. "Your mother gets modest help. You get the rest." I started to protest. She raised a hand, gentle but firm. "Learn to receive care without arguing it away." Work remained steady, not frantic. Deadlines met, weekends mine again. I bought a used bicycle and explored my new neighborhood. I continued therapy on Thursdays, naming losses without dramatics, practicing quiet joy. Sometimes I reread Dad's message, "Stay away from us forever." It doesn't burn anymore. It glows like an exit sign. Laura kept posting. I stopped checking. Narratives need audiences, mine had moved out. I eventually sold her car and closed that chapter completely. The money went into my down payment fund, a fitting transformation of burden into benefit. Back at my new place after a productive day at work, I decided to enjoy the evening outdoors. At dusk, I walked the park loop near my condo. Children rode bikes along the path. A text arrived from someone new, kind, patient. Plans for Saturday. I accepted without calculating rescue. I liked the version of me who answered. After returning home from my walk, I settled in for the evening feeling lighter than I had in years. That night, I opened the balcony door. City noise mingled with summer air. I watered plants that finally thrived. Peace wasn't a ceremony. It was a practice. Bills set to auto-pay. Phone on silent. Locks secured. Windows open. I had removed my name from their loans and from their expectations.